Hey, this is Professor Homer. We're back to random egg, and what we're going to be doing now on our project is making the random egg appear on our stage, and we're going to need some code for that. So we're going to go into our timeline and we're going to make an actions layer, and this is where we're going to put our code on the actions layer. So I'm going to go into my actions, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a variable for egg, and I'm going to call it eggMC. This is kind of like the instance name. So we're going to make one called variable eggMC, and it's of the class egg, and we're going to say equals new egg. That's the way we instantiate a class. The variable eggMC equals new egg. And just to see if it's working, what we're going to do is we're just going to add child, and we're going to put eggMC in here. Now what that should do is put the egg on the stage. So that's the first thing you can check out, is just make sure it's working. Plus you can kind of get an idea of how big it is. So I'll put a semicolon here and I'll just try that out and see what happens. See if I get everything okay. I could click this just to see if my code's okay, and I guess it is. And I'm going to test it, and that seemed to work. It put an egg at 0, 0. That's where it will put it by default. So that seemed to work. Now the egg is probably a little big, so but I'm not sure if I like it that size. But what you can also do is, after you add child, you can put eggMC, and we're going to change this, but this is just to kind of test at the beginning. We'll put eggMC.x equals, and we're at 550 by 400 is our stage, so I'll put 275. We'll just put it in the middle of the stage right now just to test it, just to see what it looks like, because we're not going to keep it in the middle, but we did that with our blue circle exercise. So 200, I believe. So right now it should put our egg in the middle if we test it, and there's our egg. And now if you might find it's a little big, so you can make it maybe half the size. So we could do that. To make it half the size, we can do eggMC, and we could do dot scale x equals 0.5, and we can do scale y. So I'll just copy this, and I'll do the scale y, and this works like a % in here. You could put an actual size if you wanted to. You could put a height and a width if you wanted to, but we'll just do scale for now. And I'll test it again, and that's more like our egg size. If you want it a little bigger, maybe I'll make it I'll scale it less for the y, so it's a little, you could even make it stretch out a little. I'll put 0.6 here. I'll test it. That's I guess that's okay. Maybe I'll do 0.55, or I'll make it a little bigger. I'll make this 0.6, and I'll make this 0.65, and just see how it looks. Again, we're just testing this. All right, that's a fine egg shape right now. So that's at least what we did there, is we instantiated our egg class. It's of the class egg, and we created a new one, and addChild adds it to the stage. It puts it at 0, 0 unless we do otherwise, which we did. We put it in the middle, and we're going to size it differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. I just put it in the middle just to check it out. I'm going to get rid of this because we don't want it in the middle. And we actually don't want addChild occurring. We can actually leave this. I think we can, well, we'll see what happens with our sizing. But we're going to actually add egg to the stage by using a button instance. So I'm going to put in my event listener for egg button. Make sure you have your instance name, and remember that's egg button dot add event listener mouse event dot click, capital click, and then you have to put your comma and whatever your function name is going to be. You can make that up. We just called it show egg, just something real simple. Close off the parentheses, and that's our listener. Now we're going to do a function, so we have to type our function keyword and do show egg again, because that's the function name that we're defining, and we just have to do colon event. You don't even have to do mouse event, and close off the parentheses and colon void. And now we're going to do 2 curly brackets, and you could hit return. It should make the second curly bracket. So that's the way we've been doing functions. The function name, the e event, colon void. So remember, there's a colon here, both here and here. And what I'm going to do is just take this addChild, and I'm just going to experiment with this. I'm going to cut this out of here, and I'm going to put it here, and I'm just curious if it'll use the same scaling when I do that. That way I could leave this up here and I don't have to do it again. But I'm not sure, so I'll try it out. Okay, and what's going to happen is I'm going to click on the egg, and it puts it up there. So I don't know right now. It looks like it's the size that I want, but I can't really tell. So if I want to even test it again, I can go in here and put that position thing, and I should have probably left that one there. And I'll test it, and I'll make my egg by clicking on the button, and there it is, and that's the size that I want. So what that tells me is that this will work up here, that even though I didn't add it to the stage yet, it's going to use this size. So that's fine. I'm going to move this down just to separate it a little bit. And I'm not going to actually use X and Y for this position. I'm going to use something else. But we could keep these here because we are going to position it randomly. Now the way to do that is, instead of using this number, we're going to use a random number. And basically we're going to use and I'll show you where to see this if you want. If you go to the W3 schools and you go to the JavaScript section, the JavaScript tutorial, and you go down to JS Math, they show you some math objects. Math, and there are a couple of these. There's math random number, and you could try it yourself and see how it works. And if you go in here and try it out, they'll show you what a random number does. It basically, when it makes a random number, it makes it basically from 0 to 1 or to 0.999. It's between 0 and 1, and it uses all these decimal points. So we may want to round this down or round it up, or just round it. We'll probably round it down so it goes from 0 to 0.9 or 0.999, whatever it goes to. So that's the way it works. To round it down, we can actually, you can actually put this and go back, because there's a couple other things you could use. Math random number returns a random number. That's the one we just used. Round actually rounds it. If it's 0.5, it goes up. If it's less than that, it goes down. Seal actually rounds up, and floor goes down. And floor is the one we may use to do this. Now, to go back, sometimes to make a random number, here's a nice example here that it says math floor, math random. If we check this out, they actually add math floor and math random together, and then they do times 11, because that'll act. And let me just do 10, because initially you might do 10. And if you try it out right now, basically it makes a random number, and there should be a 0 that comes up. It makes it go to 0 to 9. It won't do 10. That's why we always do it one more. So if you do 11, it should do, if you see result, it should basically go 0 to 10. And by using floor, it's rounding down to 0. That's why we're getting a 0. If you wanted 1, you could round up to seal and round it up. But we're actually doing it this way. So we're going to use this thing here. And you know what? I could even copy it out of here if I want to, and just see how it works. Or you know what? I'll go back and do it from scratch on here. But what we're going to do is basically do math dot random, and you should see it actually come up here, and you don't have to put a number in there yet. It's just creating a random number, and we're going to multiply that by for the X, we want a random number that basically spans our stage, this stage here, and our stage is, remember, 550 across, and it's 400 down. So we want a number that goes from 0 to 550. So to do that in our code, we can actually, just like the number from 0 to 10, we're going to multiply that by 551. And then I can do the same thing here for my Y and do it by 401. So that should give us a random number. Now, if you want to see this, you can do a trace just to check it out, and you can do egg underscore mc.x, just one of them if you want to see, and just try it out right now. And what it'll do is it should put our egg at a random place. So we'll see what happens. And I'll hit make egg, and it's showing me numbers, and there's the numbers, and you can see they have decimals. So if you want to get rid of the decimals, we can use Math Floor to get rid of the decimals for doing that. But that's what it's doing. It's doing 2 decimals there. So to get rid of the decimals, you could just wrap this Math Random around a Math Floor. Floor is rounding down, so we're going to round down, and then you put the parentheses around everything you did. So you can see there's 2 sets of parentheses. The random parentheses here and the Math Floor parentheses go here. And then I'll just do the same thing. I'll just copy this and put it in front of this one, but then make sure I put in the parentheses. So that just wraps it. Sometimes these are used together, and what that should do is round down our number. And if I do it again, now I see, you know, just numbers without decimals there, which is fine. Okay, so we don't need that trace anymore, so I'm going to get rid of this. So basically we put it at a random position, and that was pretty easy to do. And by that same method, we can just copy one of these. And if we do something called rotation, now this is just rotation, so we could just do rotation, and we'll do the same thing here, except instead of 401, we're going to do 360. And I think we could do 361 would be fine. And what that should do is just give us random rotations, and we'll see how that works. And there it looks like it's random rotation. It looks like I need to fix my egg, but it's random rotations, random positions. So that was pretty easy. Just by plugging in that math.random method, that kind of worked. And here's our rotation one. We only had to do one because rotation is only in one direction. We don't have to use X and Y for that. And also another thing I'm going to put in here, there's another little component I can add to addChild. They do something called addChild at. And I'm going to just do a 0 in there. And what that does is it puts it at this comma 0, puts it at the lowest level. So that will put it behind your button. So if you had a problem with your button, you can do addChild at, and it just basically uses that instance name, and it puts it at 0, meaning the bottom layer on the layer stack. So nothing should change when you do that. So I'll make an egg, and there it is. We got random rotation, random position, and we had already sized it ahead of time. So that wasn't too hard. There's our size, there's our instantiating the egg, and here's where we're actually adding it to the size, and we're doing these 2 things. The one other thing we're going to do is add random colors to it, and that's going to take a little work because we're going to have to write some classes for a couple different colors. So we'll do that with the next movie, but if you got this, you'll find out that that wasn't too hard to do.